Good morning, my family. Today's topic is homemade seasonings. With Christmas around the corner, I thought this was a good topic, and many of you had asked for the homemade seasoning mixes that I do. I'll give you a run-in on some of the ways that I store it, how I get my seasonings. You're in for a treat, and I will go through each step. I'm going to suggest to get a paper and pen to write these recipes down because I'm going to offer you quite a bit today, and it actually would be too many to put in the descriptions below. You can stop and pause the video as you write down these recipes, but it is so worth it to me. I started making my own because we'll start with this one, the Lawrys garlic salt, just about everybody's favorite. When I started learning more about even seasonings, I was quite disturbed in some of the ingredients that are in them. Like this one here, it's got sea salt, garlic salt, modified cornstarch. Now, for a diabetic, cornstarch is definitely not something you really want in your ingredients. The reason they do that, though, it's to keep it from caking. I understand that. The other ingredients is sugar. Why would you put sugar in something like this? Seriously? Parsley, natural flavor, and extractives of carrot for color. Okay, well, honestly, it's even simpler than that, and I'm going to explain it to you. You don't really need the coloring. Mine are basically all natural, and I'm going to run through exactly how natural my products that I am using are. I do a lot of growing my own herbs, and I will actually dehydrate mine. I will take bags of onions, dehydrate them for my own onion powder. I will take, now last year I grew fresh garlic in October, and I harvested my garlic this year at about July. I didn't have enough space to do that this year, but that doesn't mean that you can't do this either. You can, if you can find a good deal. I did at Sam's Club, and I bought big bags of garlic, chopped them up in tiny pieces, made granulars, and I dehydrated it. What I find from the all-naturals that I grow or do this, the flavors are more enhanced, and it leaves for a better tasting seasoning. Now, in this one here, this is my own. I just reused the container, but inside of this is my own homemade garlic salt. And to me, versus the store brand, this came out way better, so I've just continued to keep doing that. I have, now these I'm not going to so much do the recipe for, but I have my own celery salt. I store in mason jars. You can store in a mason jar anything with a tight seal to keep it fresh and put in your pantry. The only thing I used for this is Himalayan sea salt and celery seed, and then I just used a coffee grinder and put it in my jar. So I have celery salt whenever I want it. I added, now this is a good way too. If you've got picky vegetable eaters in your family, you can, don't say you got it from me, but you can be sneaky about your vegetables. Now this one here, I took the peels when I was canning my tomatoes, took the peels of them, dehydrated them, ground them up in my coffee grinder, and I made tomato salt. And I can incorporate tomato in my dishes, and basically they wouldn't know about it. I am going to teach you this part here, Italian sausage mix. I'm going to include that in the recipe tonight. And the reason I done the homemade Italian seasoning for making your own sausage flavor, a lot of these sausages have nitrates in them, and with those nitrates also comes sugar. They may not always necessarily add that to your nutrition facts, but sometimes they do. With me making my own, I'm eliminating all the nitrates and the sugar. And what I'll do is I'll take ground pork, ground venison, and I will add this seasoning in as I'm cooking. And honestly, it's just like I just bought it from the store. You can do it right away. You don't have to wait, and just make your own flavors for any dish. I like to use ground pork with my seasoning and make zuppa toscana soup, and it tastes just like I just bought it from the store, but better, in my opinion. Another recipe I'm going to give you. Now, this one here, my container is already full, but another one that most people put in their pantry is the Lawrys seasoned salt. I'm going to go ahead and give you that recipe too. Once I show you how to do these, I'm just going to actually, and I will include that one in the description below, because I'm just going to give you the recipe for it. I'm not actually going to run through with it because my jar is full and I really have no room for another batch at the moment. So I will give that to you too, so that way you have this seasoning on hand as well. So I'm going to go ahead from now. I'll tell you, it's cold out this morning. I've got the wood heater burning, sitting here with my coffee, and this morning I got a treat. Aldi's had a gingerbread coffee, and yeah, I guess I'm frou-frou. I like my flavored coffees. I'm the only one that drinks it. This morning I am drinking gingerbread coffee, and this stuff is good. I'm also thinking about, when I look at coffee creamers, I like the dry stuff so I can store it on my shelf. I am looking at a future video also to make flavored dry mixes for your coffee, and a few flavors that you might like, and we'll see how that one goes too. So I'm going to switch you around, and I'm going to show you the basic ways that I store my fresh seasonings that I grow, or whether I got them from the store and just made them myself. I think you guys are going to enjoy this and probably be very surprised. But remember, I'm also a homesteader, and currently we started our pantry challenge. So everything that I have, I am using for the next month or two. No major grocery shopping for us right now. We'll just do our basics that we can't do for ourselves, such as milk, cheese, things like this. Cutting our cost and replenishing our pantries and our freezers. So let's go ahead and enjoy this session here. Okay, this starts my first section here. I am actually going to give you a tip that I learned. Himalayan sea salt, especially at Walmart, it is super expensive, y'all, and you don't get a whole lot of it. But I actually found, if you're fortunate enough to have a Dollar Tree by you, Dollar Tree actually sells this salt for $1.25. This is a 1-pound bag, and I started buying it from them. It tastes just as good to me. It works well, and so I started buying this, and I'll put it in my pantry, and then I'll store it up in my sealed container here and use it to make my seasonings. I have my kosher salt so that if I want something in bulk, I can use it through my coffee grinder. This here is the home dehydrated onion powder, garlic powder, and then the granulated garlic. Now, how I did this, like I said, I would purchase a deal over at the store, but this year I ended up getting my own garlic. So I'm actually going to dehydrate all of this and turn it into the granules, and I can actually use this when I get low on garlic powder, grind it up, and I can keep this for a while. I'm finding that the flavor through this, honestly, for me is so much better. I ran through these seasonings with you on the tomato salt, the celery salt, and I will be doing the Italian and the seasoned salt with you. And then over here, we have even more. Now, this is not saying if you can't do your own, that's absolutely fine. I understand that. You can use a grocery store one. Just watch very carefully what you're using. But even if you bought it, you are going to find that there's going to be caking agents within your seasonings. So you be mindful to that if you're not doing your own. Another way, if you don't have a dehydrator, you can actually, if you have a conventional oven and fortunate enough to have one on a very low setting, just watch it very carefully. You can dehydrate your own seasonings in your conventional oven as well. So some of the store-bought ones that I have is Italian seasoning, and I have my crushed red pepper over here. I just keep them in these little containers on my pantry. We have my paprika, and you can get the sweet Hungarian paprika. I like using the smoke and the sweet. Either one doesn't matter. This one here is my parsley that I grew out in my garden, and then I dehydrated it. I actually need to go gather some more because I go through this stuff pretty well. I found a great deal on a bulk style over at Sam's Club for my whole peppercorns, which I can make my own ground pepper out of using my coffee grinder. Over here is my minced onions. Again, I can use them as minced onion or turn it into powder when I need it. This is basically my overstocks because I use more powder than I do granules. I have grown my own cayenne. Now, I've learned something about this one. If you do your own and you dry it, you dehydrate it, and then coffee grind it, I'm going to assure you that this is more intense than something you buy from the store. Use this sparingly, and this is by somebody who is learned by experience. If you go based by a real recipe, or by a recipe, I'm going to just tell you it's going to enhance the flavor a lot hotter than if you bought it from the store. I have my own lemon peel that I dehydrate, and how I do that is I will take a fresh lemon and take the rinds from it and either use a planer, or you can actually use a very fine grater and just get your rinds. Don't get down to the white part of it because it gets really bitter. I dehydrate my peels, and then I will turn it into lemon peel. And the reason I've got this is because I'm going to be making the recipe of your own lemon pepper without sugar. I have fresh rosemary that I grow in my garden, fresh thyme, and we're going to be using some turemic. And I usually get my seasonings because I find they're a whole lot flavorful over at the Amish stores. And then the store-bought, now this one here is going to be my refill. So the other store-bought ones is we've got fennel seed, and I've also got some ground coriander. So we're going to set you up and make your own seasonings for your pantry, something that will taste better for you and enjoy without all the additives and preservatives in it. So let's get started. Okay, I use a food processor just to mix things up a little bit, make it a little finer. Now, you will find that sometimes when you use these fresh seasonings, they'll get, because there's no caking agency in it or there's no cornstarch, I'll add a moisture package to my containers and just shake them up every once in a while. If they get a little bit hard, just run it through your food processor. It'll bring it back out to a fineness again, and it's simple as that. To me, that's not a whole lot of trouble to do this, and again, for the flavor that I get from it, I'd just rather go ahead and make my own. Our first one we're going to start with today is the Lawrys garlic salt. So we'll go ahead and start this one. The first ingredient, we are going to use 1/4 cup of garlic powder. So we got 1/4 cup of garlic powder. The next ingredient will be 1/4 cup of dried parsley. And there's going to be more salt in this. These are the enhanced flavors to it, but it's a garlic salt, so. And then the next ingredient is 3/4 cup of garlic or of salt, regular salt. I use, again, Himalayan sea salt. Wrong one. I actually grabbed my garlic. Here we go. I got my seasonings everywhere, y'all. So now we need 3/4 cup of salt. And I'm using my 1/4 cup. 2 and 3. That's it. Just as simple as that. So now all we do at this point, on low or on pulse, you're just going to mix this really good. So I will be right back. This thing will tend to be too loud, and I don't want to blare you with this food processor. So it's just a quick pulse to blend everything together, and you have homemade Lawry's garlic salt with just 3 ingredients. So I'm going to go ahead and process this, and I will be right back with you. And there it is. That's all it is. And this smells so amazing. Honestly, when I compare this to the store, based again by me doing my own homemade ingredients, I have such, the scent is amazing, and the flavor is even better. So this is your homemade garlic salt, just as simple as that. And you can actually use this stored up in a mason jar or a sealed container. Put it on your shelf when you run low. Like again, I'll use my old container, fill it up, and I'm raring to go. So we will do the next one. We're going to be doing homemade lemon pepper. I will put this up and come back with that one. Okay, for the homemade lemon pepper, we need a 1/2 cup of lemon zest, which is right here. And I probably have just enough to do this mix. This was my homemade lemon zest that I was telling you about. Just enough, y'all. I'll have to make me some more of this. So that was our lemon zest. We have 2.5 tablespoons of black pepper. Now, if you use a ground pepper, I would go approximately a tablespoon or tablespoon and a half. Go based by your preference. I am going to be using whole peppercorns, which means I need to actually switch this out. I'm going to have to use a coffee grinder for this one so I can blend it well. So I'll be right back while I switch this over. Okay, so I'm actually using an inexpensive coffee grinder that I picked up from Walmart. These are really handy to have. So we'll go on to our ingredients again. So again, the first one was 1/2 cup of lemon rind or lemon zest. The next ingredient is 2.5 tablespoons of black pepper. Again, I'm using peppercorn. Go a little less, based by your preference and your taste. So we're going to get 1, 2 and a half. The next ingredient is 2 teaspoons of garlic powder. One, 2. 1 tablespoon of onion powder. 1 tablespoon of coriander, and I'm using ground coriander. Next is 1 tablespoon of turmeric. And the final is 1 teaspoon of kosher salt. And that is it. That's what is in lemon pepper. So I'm going to go ahead and ground this up. And then come back and show you what this one looks like. If you can smell the lemon flavor that's coming from this seasoning, it's all blended up, and honestly, I can't emphasize enough, if you can do your own, I highly encourage this. So now I'm going to go ahead and fill up my empty jar of homemade lemon pepper, and I will be back with the next recipe. Okay, so for our next recipe, I thought this would be good too. A lot of us like that rotisserie flavor. So, and instead of having to buy it from the grocery store or already done, it's got sugar in it and the contents that you just don't want. I make my own homemade version. So again, I'm going to use my coffee grinder for this one. And if you want to season your turkey or chicken, this has amazing flavor to rotisserie with it. So we're going to make this recipe next. Again, I'm not going to do the Lawrys seasoned salt. I will put this one in the description below for you to write later. It's really simple as well. I'll just tell you some of the ingredients, and again, I'll write it down. But it's just salt, onion powder, garlic powder, paprika, and turmeric. So that one's basically a simple recipe, and I'll write it for you. But we're going to go ahead with the rotisserie seasoning, and I'm going to set up the coffee grinder because, again, I use whole peppercorns, so I want to make sure that it's fine. And we'll go through this one. I go through this a lot. As a matter of fact, I really need to season or fill up my jar because it's just about empty. So it was good timing I did this with you. So what we're going to start with is a 1/2 teaspoon of salt. A 1/2 teaspoon of smoked or sweet paprika. I like the smoke flavor to it. A 1/4 teaspoon of ground black pepper. If you're using whole peppercorns like me, you can add the same amount if you like that peppery, or slightly less. I'm just going to go ahead, because this is not a whole lot of it, so I'm just going to add a 1/4 teaspoon of these little peppercorns and grind it up in there. If I want more pepper later, I can add some more. 1/8 of a teaspoon of cayenne. And remember, I told you that if you're using the homemade version, use that very sparingly, y'all. This stuff here is potent. I'm probably going to go a little less than an eighth because, like I said, it does not take much. Okay, come on. We need a half teaspoon of garlic powder. A half teaspoon of onion powder. Half teaspoon of dried thyme. I'm going to use my fresh that I grew in the garden. Okay. These just don't want to work exactly the way they should, I reckon, today. Just a little bit more, because this one here is just, there we go. A half teaspoon of dried basil. And I'll be right back, because I did not put that on my table. Okay, I'm back. It's a half teaspoon of, dried basil. A half teaspoon of dried rosemary. Again, I'm using fresh. And a quarter teaspoon of dried parsley. Now this does make a small batch. You can expand this as much as you need. You can make it bigger, just double, triple, however you want to in the recipe. Now I'm going to go ahead and grind this up into a powder, and I shall be right back. And there we have it, our own homemade rotisserie seasoning mix. I will add this in the description below for you too. This one was quite a bit of ingredients, so I'll go ahead and list this one as well for you. And on to our next one. As soon as I get set up, we'll go ahead and start the next seasoning. Okay, so the last and final seasoning we're going to do today is the homemade Italian sausage seasoning. Again, I like this. There's no nitrates in it, and it has a beautiful flavor for the right now. If you didn't have it in your freezer or you didn't have it on you, instead of running to the store, you can just make up your own right then and there, and it tastes just as good making it up, frying up your ground pork, adding your seasoning. It's actually amazing flavor. So again, I'm going to be using my coffee grinder because I'm using whole peppercorns. We're going to start out with 2 teaspoons of dried parsley. Two teaspoons of Italian seasoning, which which I have over here. One and a half teaspoons of ground black pepper. I'm going to start out with one, because this will grind up pretty strong into a powder. A half teaspoon of fennel seed. A half teaspoon of paprika. One teaspoon of red pepper flakes. And that would just be your crushed red pepper. Two teaspoons of salt. One tablespoon of minced garlic. And I need to come over here and get that for you. I'm overcrowded, y'all. And 1 teaspoon of minced onion. And that is it. I will go ahead and grind this up and be right back with you. And that is our homemade Italian sausage seasoning. You can choose to grind this up if you like to, or you can just turn around and leave it with the whole chunks. It doesn't matter. I like to grind it because I am using whole peppercorn. But this tastes amazing. And the comparison between store-bought and this, I get better flavor, honestly, with the homemade because of the enhancements of the fresh ingredients. But you can use store-bought ingredients to make your own as well. Just like I said, one reason I avoid it all is because of the hidden sugars and because of the caking agents they use most generally are cornstarch. And cornstarch is a high carb. It's like having flour. So I avoid it by just making my own. So this is it, folks. These are all the seasonings to get you started. A good run in your pantry with homemade flavors. And if there's anything you would like in particular, leave them in the comments below and I will look and see if I have that mix. Most generally I do, and we can figure out how to make that that particular seasoning as well. So I'm going to clean this mess up and I will be with you in just a minute. Okay guys, I'm hoping that these recipes helped you. I want to thank you because you helped me in areas I needed to restock anyway, so this was a good thing for me to do as well. I sincerely love each and every one of you. I hope this gave you some ideas what you can do for yourself as far as growing your own, why you should actually grow your own. Again, I can't emphasize enough the difference in flavor is, even if dehydrated or dried, it still is more enhanced than what you will ever get at the store. Most of those are freeze-dried, which if I had one wish left on this homestead that I could use is a freeze dryer, I could actually do my own egg powder, dried milk, cheese. That is the one greatest wish I had left. It's on my wish list, but that is super expensive. So, and even freeze drying your own food, there's just something about it I don't understand, unless it's the fact that shelf stable. Over time, even my own seasonings, I will tell you, over time you can store this, but eventually down the line, even homemade fresh will lose its flavor. So, and that could be part of the thing. I don't know the difference between it, but I am finding when I do my own, it is so much better. It tastes so much better. And to me, it's healthier. I know what's in my ingredients, and I don't have to worry about it. So, again, I hope this helped you. I hope it gave you some ideas. Thank you for helping me restock my pantry. Until then, much, much love. Thank you all. Thank you again for helping us grow. And I can't say enough. This isn't about me. It's about you. And I'm enjoying this. This is my lifestyle. I enjoy it anyway, so I enjoy sharing it with you. But until next time, much love. Stay warm from Parton's Heritage Homestead.